Welcome to Holistic Accountant Podcast, where we aim to showcase how adopting a holistic approach in accounting and tax maximizes value for clients. Beyond traditional tasks like preparing financial statements and tax returns, a holistic accountant focuses on offering advice that maximizes personal wealth on an after-tax basis. If you enjoy this episode, please consider leaving a rating and sharing it with those who might also benefit. And to ensure you stay updated, subscribe to our weekly email. The link is in the show notes. Okay, today Mena and I would like to talk about firing bullets and then cannonballs. And really this came out of a great book by Jim Collins called Great by Choice. And Great by Choice, what they did is they studied companies that delivered 10 times their industry peers in terms of returns over a 10 to sort of 15 year period. And that's when these companies were relatively small, still public companies, but relatively small, but generated great outcomes. So for example, they compared Microsoft to Apple. So Apple was the comparison company. Microsoft was the one that delivered great returns. And this was some time ago. Of course, Apple's made a pretty substantial comeback since Jim Collins completed this work. Intel was another company, Southwest Airlines, which has been well documented. So they're the sorts of companies. And essentially they consolidated or highlighted, identified a couple of different things that these companies did. Some of them, which I'll mention, the 20-mile march, which is really a focus on a very long-term goal. They call it a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And then just constantly every single day focusing on taking that one additional step towards achieving that goal. Productive paranoia, we might talk about some of these in other episodes. Productive paranoia is about being paranoid about, the risks and opportunities that your company faces, but making sure it's productive. So you're not just jumping at shadows, but also you're not going home thinking, okay, I've won this race. I'm now the best in my industry. I've got nothing to worry about. Return on luck was another one. We all need some luck to go our way. And the companies that really generated some great outcomes was they recognized that they were lucky or something changed in the market that was outside their control, and they were able to sort of execute on that. An example of return on luck from our perspective in financial services is that as a result of the Royal Commission and tightening in education standards in financial planning, half the financial planners have left the industry. So 5 years ago, there were about 30,000 financial planners in Australia. Now there's about 15,000. Obviously, that creates sort of a bit of a happy hunting ground for financial planning practices. That's good, but you've got to get that return on luck and recognize that. The big one we want to talk about today is firing bullets and then firing cannonballs.
So basically the idea comes with the bullets first. So, bullets are ideas that are low cost, low risk, low distraction experiments or tests. There's not a great risk of doing these or implementing these. You're using them to validate certain ideas before committing, significant resources. It allows you to adjust quickly should something go wrong and learn from those mistakes and provide a foundation for you to then, start firing cannonballs. So cannonballs are larger scale initiatives that concentrate on resources, higher risk. Obviously, with higher risk and cost comes potential for higher return and greater impacts. So you should only fire these cannonballs should the actual bullets be successful in the first place. As an example, in 2002, the iPod sort of remained a small part of Apple's overall portfolio. I think it was about 3% of net sales, meriting neither a separate line item in Apple's financial statements or a mention in their company's business description. But it was a pretty effective bullet. Then Apple had increasing sort of evidence about, the requirements for the iPods and how successful they were and what people loved about them. They got the data behind, what was important for them. And then, they got onto the iTunes platforms for the Macs and so forth. So it allowed Apple to start firing larger cannonballs, once they realized that the iPod was quite successful. So Apple then took the next step. They launched an online music store and worked out, how to deal with the music industry and offer individual songs at quite a low cost, and they succeeded quite well actually at it. Millions of people buy their music rather than actually steal it, download it online. I remember back in the iPod days, there used to be the torrents and the like that people used to download and just to get their music for free. But now, because it was fairly well priced, it was accessible through the iPod and the iTunes system, it was quite a success. And then after that, they fired their big cannonball. They generated, I think it was over $9 billion of revenue from their Apple iTunes Music.
Yeah, it's a great example of firing bullets than cannonballs. So really, what are the benefits of taking this approach? Well, it allows you to be innovative and still maintaining discipline. So you're not betting the farm on any particular direction, but it gives you that empirical evidence to either validate, yes, this is a good product or service and we should expand it, or no, that there's no support for that. And one of the things that attracts us to being self-employed is often we like that creativity and that ingenuity to think of new ideas and to innovate, but we don't, as I said, we don't want to bet the farm on it and risk the whole business. And so firing those bullets before you then fire a cannonball helps reduce that risk.
So how can you use this concept in your business? Well, planning piece first needs to come. So you need to identify areas in your business where you can fire these little bullets. Establish clear criteria of what constitutes a successful bullet. And it could be in different areas of your business, from, people to products to finance and so forth. And create a process around what this bullet looks like and how do you scale it from a bullet to a cannonball. And then you got to get the people around you. Foster a culture that embraces experimentation and learning. Don't surround yourself with people that hate change.
Yep. So what we want to put to you is ask you, what bullets have you fired in your business over the last 2 to 3 years? One of the things that the advantages that small businesses have is they're agile. And I think we should use that to our advantage. So if a really large corporate wants to offer a new product offering, a new pricing strategy, a new service or something like that, they'll put a team around it. It'll take them anywhere from 6 to 12 months to do everything they need to do to get their ducks lined in a row to be able to offer that service. Whereas as a small business, we can say we can test that out on a handful of customers starting tomorrow. And we should use that agility to our advantage to innovate and to make sure we're exploring the best opportunities in the industry or customer segment that we're targeting. And firing those bullets and then cannonballs is a great way to do it. You test those bullets, and then what you do is then invest in the infrastructure, because nothing's killed more small businesses than more sales. So what you don't want to do is test something, it works, and then roll it out in a grand scale, and you don't have the infrastructure to deal with that volume of business. So you've got to build that infrastructure first, which could be building a team in terms of people. It could be obviously building infrastructure in terms of being able to execute on an operational perspective, and then scale. Then you've got the empirical evidence, it works, you've got the infrastructure behind you, and then you can scale your business. And finally, I should say, any of Jim Collins's books, we talk about them quite a bit in this podcast. Good to Great, Great by Choice, really great books and worthwhile sitting down and learning from, because, whilst they still apply to really large businesses that are listed, a lot of the lessons that they've identified you can implement in small business as well. Okay, that's it from us for this week. Until next week, bye for now.